Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning to you all, and I hope and trust you all had a wonderful and beautiful weekend. So happy Monday, everyone. Let's confirm that we are good to go this morning. So, as usual, you know how we do it here. So let's confirm that you can see my screen and you can hear my voice clearly by typing hi in the comment section. Just tell me a hi in the comment section and this will confirm that we are good to go. I really want to see some feedback, please. So if you can see my screen, let me know right in the comment section by typing hi. I'm waiting. Okay, let's see what we have here. All right. Okay, 2712, thank you very much. Thank you. 733, good morning. Thank you very much for that feedback. 38031 says is new here and would like to learn how to trade. Okay, all right, you are welcome on board. And well, let's see how that plays out as you continue to be with us during the Extra Speed live session. Dino, thank you very much. You're welcome, Dino. Hey Carrie, how are you doing today, Carrie? Good morning, happy Monday to you too. I'm so glad to have you around. Liberdate, good morning, Liberdate. How are you? I'm glad to see you again this morning. Trust you're doing well and hope you had a wonderful weekend. All right. Okay, so on this note, I would like to take this as a confirmation that everything is well and fine. I'm so excited to welcome you all to yet another promising session on the Extra Speed Live. My name is Sheriff Daramola, and for the next 1 hour, I'm going to be your host as we take a technical dissection of the current market structure ahead of the New York session. Well, today being the first trading day of the week, you know how we do it. So we are going to be taking on random pairs, instrument options, or cryptocurrencies today. And anything we choose today is going to be what we are going to be following up on throughout the week. And so if you have any instruments, options, cryptocurrency you want us to look at this morning, feel free to drop it right in the comment section, and trust me, I will try and incorporate it into our plans for the week. Though I do have like 6 instruments that I want us to be looking at this morning. For those who are joining us for the first time, you are highly welcome on board. I'm so glad to have you guys around. So what we simply do is come here on a daily basis. It's always 10 a.m. UTC, 11 a.m. West African time. So we come here together to review, choose instruments we want to be trading, review this, and do follow-up details on this instrument, manage our positions ahead of the New York session. And this always happens every day. And it might look a little bit overwhelming at first since this is your first time being with us, but trust me, as long as you stay with us, with time you get to understand how this works, and you will be able to use the information you have gathered here to make your individual decision. So without further ado, let's dive right into the business for today. And you all know how we do it. The first thing we want to be doing is to keep tabs with the fundamentals by checking the economic calendar to see if we do have any macroeconomic event that we are going to be looking forward to today. And one thing that this does is that it helps us to time ourselves ahead of the event and during the event and after the event. And at the same time, it also helps us to position ourselves in such a way that we can catch any potential move as a result of the event. So with that being said, let's dive into the economic calendar. And what we normally do here is to focus on high impact event that will be affecting the instrument that we are monitoring. So based on the instrument I'm bringing on table this morning, we are going to be looking at event that will be affecting the US dollar, the pound sterling, and the Japanese yen. So for Monday, May 15th here, this is the economic calendar on your screen right now. We do not have any high impact event affecting any of the pairs I'm having on the table today. But if on a day like this, especially on the first trading day of the week, when we don't have any high impact event, I always try to bring in the medium impact event to see what is really going on from the medium term level. Now, what we have here is a handful of speeches coming in today. So we have the Bostic speech. Raphael Bostic is an American economist and academic who became the 15th president and CEO of the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta. So he's going to be having a speech today. So definitely majority will be looking forward to that one. Then Kashkari will also be having a speech today. Kashkari is the CEO of the 9th District Federal Reserve Bank at Minneapolis. Then we also have banking speech coming up, let's say in about 7 to 8 hours from now. Banking is the CEO of the Federal Reserve Bank of Richmond, so we are going to be looking forward to that one too. Then we have Cook's speech coming up later in the day. Cook is a member of the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System. So these are medium impact events that majority want to be looking forward to, and obviously we shall be seeing the reflection of this anticipation on the chart as price action. So with that being said, here let's dive right into the charts, and as usual, the first commodity we are going to be taking this morning is going to be the US oil spot. So to get started, we want to scale up into the daily time frame so that we can have an holistic view of what is going on. Well, I'm not going into the daily time frame on the US spot today, so I want to be going on into the 4 hours time frame, as on the 4 hours time frame we have a precise idea of what to expect this week from a technical standpoint. And if you look at the 4 hours time frame, which is right on your screen right now, you will see that since the beginning of the month of April, you will notice how price action has been bearish in this market. And to further emphasize the strength of the sellers here, I was able to connect the series of lower highs and lower lows in this market to give us this simple descending channel that you can see on your screen right now. And this is going to be the basis upon which we are going to be making our decision for the week. Now, if we look at what happened last week's trading session, we saw how price action, after getting in contact with the resistant line of that descending channel, we saw this old chopper situation happen, though we saw how price action broke out of that structure a couple of times during the course of last week, which gave us the idea that we could be buying the US oil spot. Though we had some bullish positions which we took advantage of last week, we bought at the $72 area, which led to the breakout of the resistant line. And prior to that move, we also bought at the beginning of the week, just right at the breakout of that $72 area. And then price action coming back to retest the resistant line and the $72 level was another opportunity for us to buy. So we saw price action move about 140 pips in that direction before we begin to see selling pressure resume in this market around this area. And one interesting thing about the sell pressure here was the fact that it broke down our $72 level, which happened to be our key level last week, and leading into a situation here where price action dropped further below the resistant line of that descending channel. And as soon as price action broke down the resistant line of that descending channel, it was at this point we realized that price is back into the seller's territory. And from a technical standpoint, as long as price action remain below the resistant line of this descending channel, we would have no other choice but to look out for selling opportunities in this market. However, to guide our trading activity for this week, what I did here was to identify a key level that we shall be using to guide our trading opportunities. And what does this key level does? It helps us to position ourselves, and it tells us how to buy or how to sell in this market. So as long as price action remains above the $70 area, we tend to look out for buying opportunities. That is, we want to look out for structures that support a bullish momentum. However, if price action drops below our key level, we want to be looking out for selling opportunities in this market. Now, with the situation of things right now, looking at it from afar, it is quite reasonable to look out for selling opportunities. However, since price action has been trading just right around the $70 area since the beginning of the week, we want to see how participants in this market is reacting to that structure. We want to see the patterns that this price movement is going to be giving us, and this will give us an insight into what to expect during the week. So to be able to get a better perspective into what is really going on around that $70 area, we want to be scaling down into a much more lower time frame, like the 1 hour time frame. Now, on the 1 hour time frame, this was what I was able to pull out from this current structure. And if you look at this closely and looking at how participants in this market has been reacting to this level since the beginning of the week, you will realize that price action appeared to be trapped within a range between the $70.15 level. This was where price action started this week. Then we saw it drop into the $69.35 level, which happens to be our support line for this week. So we had this simple flat channel here to guide our trading activity for the week. And you all know what we do whenever we have this kind of simple setup. We want to remain patient, waiting for price action to either break out of the resistant line of that channel to give us a buy opportunity, or break down the support line of that channel to give us a selling opportunity. And with the way things are going right now, it appears that buyers are gradually trying to gain some momentum. And personally, I had the position triggered at the $70.50 level, 15-cent level after the breakout of that structure happened here. And one thing I would like to call your attention to around this area is that this whole structure here is close to the resistant line of that descending channel we identified on the 4 hours time frame. And one thing you want to take note of is that if price action breaks out of that resistant line, then at this point we want to be getting ready. We want to be part of a bullish momentum to the upside, where probably a retest of structure will happen, probably into the trend line one more time, or back into the $70.15 level, or the $70 area, where buying pressure will give us more confirmation to be part of another wave of bullish momentum. So what this simply says here, what the structure simply tells us at this point, is that as long as price action remains above this $70 area, which happens to be our key level for this week, will remain bullish in this market. So presently, if you are taking advantage of a buy position, probably anywhere above the $70 area, you will be currently running with about 38 pips in profit. Let's see how far this bullish momentum is going to go. Now, if the bullish momentum continues in such a way that it continues to find higher highs and higher lows, I want you to remember that we also have a structure at the $72 area, which also had been a key significant key determinant of price action in the last couple of weeks. Remember how this level was a very strong buying niche during the course of last week's trading session. We saw this structure here. We saw it serve as a buying niche here too as well. Then during the midweek, we also saw how this level was a buying niche too, where sellers were finding it very difficult to break back down that structure. And not until Thursday of last week that we saw price action did a significant breakdown of that level. So if price action continues to the upside and we find ourselves around that $72 level again, it now depends on how price action reacts to the structure that will determine if we are going to be adding more buy position to our existing trade, or probably get ready to join another wave of bearish momentum to the downside. So what this simply means is that as soon as price gets close to this area, maybe around the $71.50 level and the $72 area, you want to be moving your stop loss to secure the current buy position at that area, as we remain patient to see how price action reacts to that level. Now, if price action gets into the structure at any time and we begin to see selling pressure where we see signs that buyers are finding it difficult to break back above that structure, then at this point this might likely be an opportunity to join a sell momentum to the downside. But if price action breaks out of the $72 area and followed by buying pressure on our lower time frame, then we shall be getting ready to be part of a bullish momentum from the structure. So let's be on standby to catch any of these opportunities as we continue to monitor price action from these levels. Now, in as much as we are looking out for buying opportunities in this market, you know how we do it. We want to always keep our minds open. We want to be as flexible as possible. You would agree with me that the financial market is a very, very fluid environment. And for us to be consistently profitable, we want to be as fluid too as possible. So if we have a bias and price action continue to move in the opposite direction, then definitely we want to be on standby to catch that move. Now, at this point, we want to also consider the potentials that the sellers have in this market. So now let's look at this whole structure and consider what has been happening since last week. You would agree with me that price action has been bearish since last week's trading session. As you can see, price action continued to find lower lows and lower highs in this market. But as soon as it got into that $69.35 level this week, we saw this bullish momentum began breaking out of that $70 area. So one thing we are going to be doing here to be part of a sell move, what we want to see on this chart that will give us an idea that sellers are still very present in this market, is to see price action take out this new support line at the $69.35 level, which we identified today. Remember, this is the lowest point price action has been this week, and this is where we saw the bullish momentum we are seeing right now began. So one thing we are going to be seeing is for price action to break down the $69.35 level for us to think of selling the US oil spot for today. And remember that we also have a structure around the $67 area, which I showed you on the 4 hours time frame. Let's look at that quickly. So that's the $67 area, which happens to be the lowest point price action has been this month. And as you saw here, as soon as price got into this level at the beginning of this month, we saw buying traction resume from that area. So if price action drops into this area, depending on how it reacts to this level, we'll now decide if we are going to be adding more sell position or we are going to be getting ready for another wave of bullish momentum. So our center of focus is quite simple here. So we have it on the 1 hour time frame, just right within the $70.15 level and the $69.35 area. So let's keep tabs with this structure. You might want to screenshot my screen so that you can use it as a reference point when you're about to make your individual decision. So in summary, price remaining above the $70 area makes us feel comfortable in our buy position, and we continue to look out for more buying opportunities at the breakout of that trend line. And for selling opportunities here, we want to see price action break down the $69.35 to be thinking of selling the US oil spot for today. So these are my views here on the US oil spot. If you do have any questions, feel free to let me know right in the comment section, and trust me, I am very willing to be of help in that regard. So let's see, for the next 10 seconds, let's see what's happening in the comment section before we move on to the next pair. Hello Vivi, how are you doing? Vivi, good morning. 603, good morning to you, glad to have you around again. Nest 57, hi. 799, good morning. Okay, so thank you very much. So in the absence of no questions, let's assume that we're on the same page here. So I will be moving on to the next option. So the next option we shall be looking at today is the US Tech. And on the US Tech has been quite profitable for us in the last couple of months actually. And let's take a holistic view of what is really going on in this market so far. So I will be focusing on trading activity since the beginning of this year. Now, if you look at what has been happening in the last 5 months, I think, yes, since the beginning of this year, you will notice that price action has been very, very bullish in this market. As you can see, uniformly higher highs and higher lows in this market. And to further emphasize the strength of the buyers in this market, we have connected a series of higher highs and higher lows to give us this simple this ascending channel that you can see on your screen right now. Now, to further emphasize the strength of the buyers in this market, we saw the breakout of the 12,800 level for the first time in since the month of August. Remember, the 12,800 area was a very, very strong selling niche for participants in this market. As you saw here, every attempt by the buyers to break out of the structure at every point in time has been negated by the sellers. But during the course of the month of April, that is the first day of the month of April, we finally saw the breakout of the 12,800 to further emphasize the strength of the buyers in this market. Now, zooming into what has been happening here since the beginning of the month of April, you will see that despite the breakout of that structure, we saw a huge consolidation phase which lasted about a month between the 1st of April till last week trading session. We saw our price action was caught within that range. And you all know from a technical standpoint that whenever we have a flat channel like this, all we want to do is to remain patient, waiting for price action to either break down the support line of that channel to give us a sell signal, or break out of the resistance line to give us a buy signal. And from what happened last week, as you can see here, we saw how price action broke out of that resistance line at the $13,220 level, and in fact we saw a retest of that structure to incite a trend continuation to the upside. So in the last 5, 6, 7 days now, we have seen price action trading just right above that resistance line, which is a positive sign for the buyers in this market. So now that we are heading into the new week, what is going to be our plans from this current structure? What are we going to be looking out for? And from a technical standpoint, personally, we should be considering buying the US Tech 100 for this week. Now, what do we want to see here that will make us to buy? Now, since the breakout of that 13,200, we can see here that price action had moved to as far as the 13,440 level, which you can see here. And as soon as price got into that structure, we saw how that level had been sellers had been negating the bullish attempt around that area. So for the sake of clarity, let's label this area as it's going to be one of our parameters to guide trading activity for this week. So let's label that out. So we have it at the $13,440 area. So you want to map that out to on your chart. Now, with this whole situation here, a further breakout of this level will definitely give us more opportunity to add more buy position to our existing trade. And remember, we have our TP target at a 13,800. Remember, we had this long-term TP target zone, which we spotted a couple of months ago, where we were saying that if price action continues to the upside, we want to have our TP target around that area. So let's see how price action will play out in that regard. And from this current moment here till that TP target zone, we have about 440 pips to catch here. So will this whole situation here turn out to be a trend continuation that will break out of the 13,440? That is one situation we are going to be looking at when we scale down to a lower time frame. Then another possibility here is that after considering the continued selling pressure here, we cannot ignore the potentials of sellers too as well. And if we go back into the past, that is, if we go to as far back as the month of August of last year, we saw our selling pressure was around this area. And if we even go further away into the month of May of last year, that's exactly 1 year ago, we saw how that same area was a very strong selling niche. So at this point in time, the price action is back into the 13,440, and the sight of selling pressure in the last 3 days in this market could likely send a bearish signal across the market. And if that is going to be the case, then a break back below the 13,220 will definitely welcome a sell position in this market. So let's scale down into the 1 hour to a much lower time frame. Let's see how participants in this market has been reacting to the structure to determine what our next line of action will be. So before we go down into the 1 hour time frame, let's look at what is going on the 4 hours time frame. So on the 4 hours time frame, I was able to spot this whole setup here. So what I did on the 4 hours time frame was to consider trading activities since the last week of the month of April, and something is quite obvious here, that price action is bullish in this market. Now when we connect the series of higher lows, we have a bullish trend line figured out, which will be serving as our yardstick for trading activity for this week. As you can see, price action had consistently respected that trend line, and going forward, as long as price action remains above that trend line, we'll have no other choice than to continue to look out for buying opportunities in this market. Now, in addition to that trend line here, I have a couple of key levels that we are going to be using for today. So I will zoom right into the structures. So the first key level that we have here is the 13,435, which I identified as the 13,440 on the daily time frame. So this was the highest point price action has been for this year, 13,435, and we have been citing selling pressure around that area. So that is the first key level that we are having for this week. Then the second key level we are going to be using for this week is the 13,300. Remember, prior to the beginning of this month, we saw how the 13,300 was a very strong selling niche in this market, negating all attempt by the buyers to break out of that structure, and not until the beginning of this month that we saw the breakout of this level. Now, will this 13,300 continue to be a support line? That is, sellers find it difficult to break through the structure, and if that is going to be the case, then a breakout of the 13,435 level will be a signal for us to look out for buying opportunities in this market, while a breakdown of the 13,330, which also shares a confluence with that bullish trend line we identified earlier, will be a bearish signal for us in this market. A retest of structure doing a further confirmation to add more position to our existing trade. So with this being said here, with the information we have gathered on the 4 hours time frame, let's scale down to the 1 hour time frame to see how participants in this market has been reacting to this level, to this key level at a 13,300. So when we scale down to the 1 hour time frame, let's look at what we have here on the 1 hour time frame, and let's consider how participants in this market has been reacting to this level since the beginning of this week. So this is where price action started this week. Price action started exactly along the 13,300. So some of us would have taken advantage of the buy position here, and if you did take advantage of that move, well done to you for being on standby, as you will currently be having about 76 pips in profit at this point in time. So my advice is to move your stop loss accordingly to secure your current buy position. Now, will this move continue like this to the upside? Well, if we look at this whole structure closely, you can see that since the beginning of this week we have been bullish. So price action has been finding higher low, and when we connect the series of higher lows here, we have a bullish trend line that we are going to be using to guide our trading activity, at least for today. Then another key level that we are going to be using here falls exactly along the 13,350 area, which we are also going to be using in conjunction with our trend line to guide our trading activity. Now, how to use these structures, I will be giving you a detail into how to exploit this to our own advantage in a moment. So let's hold on a second, please. So right now we have this very simple setup just right within the structures we identified on the 4 hours time frame, that is between the 13,300 and the 13,435. We have a simple setup right now unfolding before our highs. So right now we have a trend line. We also have a key level which happens to have been broken during the early hours of today, just right above the 13,350. So as long as price action remains above both the trend line and the 13,350, we continue to look out for buying opportunity. So if you had missed out on the buy position earlier, then we want to see our price action. Of course, we saw the breakout of this 13,350 right now. So we want to see price action come back to retest the structure, where continued buy pressure will give us more confirmation that buyers are strong in this market. Then we want to be joining that move to the upside. So that is how we are going to be buying this one. Then another thing here is what happens if price action does not come back to touch the structure and it continues to find higher highs. Then we want to have a buy stop order above the 13,345 level to capture that trend continuation to the upside. Then another structure is situated here. I've been citing the sell pressure around this area, just along the 13,390. So let's map that one out too, as we are going to be using that as key structures to guide our move today. So we have at the top right hand side, okay, so we have it right now. So if price action does not drop into the structure, the 13,350, which also shares a confluence with the trend line, and instead it continues to climb higher highs, then a breakout of the 13,390. Remember, we are not getting too excited. After this breakout happens, you want to scale down to your lower time frame, like your 10, 15 or 5 minutes time frame, to look out for retest of the 13,390 or this trend line, where the appearance of buy pressure will give us an opportunity to buy. And with a buy stop order above the 13,435, we're going to be having a second or third position, depending on where you have incited your first position for this week, to join a trend continuation to the upside. So as long as price action remains above this trend line, we feel comfortable in our buy position and look out for more opportunities to add more position to our existing trade. Now, in as much as we are looking out for buying opportunities, you know how we do it. We want to ensure that we also keep tabs with the potentials of the sellers in this market. And considering the fact that sellers had negated the 13,345 level in the last 1 week, the potentials of sellers is needed to be considered at this point. Now, to sell the US Tech 100 for today or for the later part of this week, what do we want to see on this chart that will give us that confirmation that sellers are gradually coming in this market? Personally, I want to see, since we have a bullish trend line here that is guiding our bullish momentum, then a breach of this bullish trend line will definitely be a signal that sellers are gradually coming in. So we want to see price action break down this trend line and then even break down to 13,350. But remember, we are not having a sell stop order in this case scenario, as we want some confirmation to happen, which is likely going to come in on the chart as a retest of either the 13,350 or this trend line here to help us to identify a sell momentum in this market. And if this happens, when we scale down to our lower time frame, price action finds it difficult to climb above the 13,390, then at this point we want to have a sell stop order below the 13,350 to join the bearish move to the downside. With a further sell stop order below the 13,300, we'll welcome more opportunities in this market. So that is how we are going to be selling the US Tech 100 for today. So a breakdown of the structure will be giving us that signal we are looking out for. So let me label this out just in case you want to screenshot my screen so that you can use it as a reference point when you're about to make your individual decision. So that is what we are looking at on the US Tech 100 for today. If you have any questions, let me know right in the comment section. Below 206983 want us to look at the GBPJPY. I think you wrote GSPJPY. Probably you are talking about the GBPJPY. I want to suspect. Is a buy at what level? Okay, all right, we shall look at that. Let me run through the instrument I have here, then we shall be taking on the GBPJPY at the end, towards the end of the session. Okay, so I hope you stay tuned in. Below 6983. Okay, all right, so in the absence of no questions regarding the US Tech 100, I want to assume that we're on the same page here, so I will be moving on to the next instrument for today, which is the should we take the GBPUSD? Okay, let's take the XAUUSD first of all, and let's go into the XAUUSD right now. So the XAUUSD, so the first thing we are going to be doing here is to run through the daily time frame. Of course, we want to see things from an holistic point of view. We want to see what is really going on in this market so far since the beginning of this year. And one thing for sure that you will see here is the fact that price action has been bullish. And since when was this? Since September last year, we can see how price had consistently found higher highs and higher lows. And if you want to take it a step further to confirm the strength of the buyers here, I was able to connect the series of higher highs and higher lows. And when you do that, you can see that we have an ascending channel that we are going to be using to guide our trading activity. And in fact, it has been helping us to guide our trading activity in the last couple of months. However, something interesting has been happening in this market since the month of March. As you can see, the gold had been finding new highs throughout the last couple of months. So we had the breakout of the $2,000 level. We had the 2048. We also had the 2068 during the last couple of weeks in this market. So price action has been trying to find new highs in this market, which further emphasize the strength of the buyers. However, the interesting thing about this structure is the fact that as soon as price got into the resistance line since the month of March, we have been seeing how sellers has been trying to negate all bullish attempts in this market. So every attempt by the sellers to break out of the structure since the month of March has been met with strong resistance from the sellers. And there is a psychological explanation to that regard. And considering the fact that this is the first time price action will be getting to this high this year, it's a popular knowledge that when price action finds a new high, it takes quite a time for it to acclimatize to that structure. And as a result of this, the emotion of fear is always dominant around this area, and this reflects on the chart as a chopper situation, like a retracement phase or sideways trading, where majority are not sure if this new high is going to hold or it's going to be negated or is going to incite a crash at any time soon. So majority who had bought at a very cheap price, let's say somewhere around the 1,840, we want to be doing some profit taking activities, which is reflecting on this chart as this old choppy situation we have seen here since the month of March. As you can see, price is trapped within a range just between the $2,068 level, which happens to be the highest point for this year, and the 1,980, which happens to be the support line of this flat channel. And you all know from a technical standpoint, whenever we have this kind of flat channel, we want to wait for a confirmation in the form of either a breakout of that resistance line at a 2068 for buying opportunities, or breakdown of the 1980 for selling opportunities. But if you look at this structure, do we have to wait for price action to break out of the 2068 before we start thinking of buy? That's like over 500 pips move in that regard. And if you look at for the sell expectation here, do we have to wait for price action to break down the 1980 before we start thinking of selling? And this is like over 370 pips move. Of course not. So what we are going to be doing here is to try and see what is going on around this area. If possible, we can catch the move early enough even before the breakout of this structure happened. So to be able to identify the simple a setup here, we want to be scaling down into a much more lower time frame. And what I did here was to go into the 4 hours time frame, and on the 4 hours time frame I was able to identify a simple setup that we can actually use to guide our trading activity for this week. Now on the 4 hours time frame, there are a couple of levels here that I was able to map out, but I will be focusing on the key important structures here. Now zooming right into what has been happening since the beginning of this month, we saw that price action tested a new high at the beginning of the month. We saw this impulsive move that started from this demand zone at the 1975, hitting the new high at the 2068. And since price action tested the new high, we saw this old choppy situation going on here, price action going into a consolidation phase actually. And within this old consolidation phase, I was able to spot a lower low and lower high channel within that area. It's just right behind the scenes. It's not something that we really want to hold on to. I just wanted you to see how sellers are trying to make a statement within this old choppy situation. But the fact that price action is yet to break down the $2,000 mark, remember this level has been our key level in the last couple of months in this market. This 2000 mark is a very strong psychological area that we also want to be monitoring as well. So since the breakout of this 2000 level at the beginning of this month rather, we saw how price has come back to retest the structure a couple of times. One happened here on the 5th of May here. As you can see, we saw the sharp rejection. We also saw another one happen here during the course of last week's trading session. Now, is this a sign that the $2,000 level wants to become a platform for new waves of bullish momentum? Hence, we want to be seeing this as a demand zone, at least in the meantime. Now, taking it a further closer into the structure following the trading activities last week, look at this impulsive move last week. We saw it drop into the structure, the $2,000 mark. We saw a sharp rejection. Price action transitioned into what looks like a double bottom structure. And from a technical standpoint, whenever we have this kind of potential double bottom structure, which is a reversal pattern unfolding, we have no other choice than to start anticipating that price action could start going bullish at this point. And whenever we have this potential reversal pattern, the next thing we want to be doing is to identify the neckline of that reversal pattern, which is going to be serving as a platform upon which we are going to be looking out for buying opportunity. And secondly, is a breakout of that neckline will be validating the reversal pattern and also giving us a sign into how potent that reversal pattern is. So to identify the neckline of that reversal pattern, this was what I was able to do. So we have it situated at the $2,020 area, which also happens to be a major determinant of price action in the last 2 to 3 weeks now, I think. So what we are going to be doing, and sorry, mind you, the $2,020 level, which is serving as a neckline here, is also going to be serving as our key level for the week. And you know, when I say key levels here, as long as price action remains above that key level, we look out for buying opportunity. But if price action drops below the key level, we want to be looking out for selling opportunities. So now let's scale down into the lower time frame, that is the 1 hour time frame, so that we can see how participants has been reacting to the zone since the beginning of this week. Let's see if buyers are trying to push price to the upside, or probably sellers are the ones trying to make a statement in this market. So in order to have a better perspective here, we scale down into our 1 hour time frame, and things now become better and a little bit more clearer. So on the 1 hour time frame, I was able to spot a descending channel. So after connecting the series of lower highs, this whole activity here was what happened during the second half of last week. So we have this resistant line of this descending channel after connecting the lower highs, and then we have the support line of this channel. In fact, I have a couple of lines to emphasize the support line of this channel. So we have a beautiful descending channel at this point. And if you look at this structure, you will be asking, now, is this going to be a selling opportunity in this market? Now, that is the next question. Now, whatever happens since the early hours of today will now tell us if we are really going to be selling or buying the XAUUSD today. Now, I was able to spot and monitor how participants has been reacting to the structure since the beginning of the week, and this was what I was able to find out. Now, look at this. This was where price action started the week around the $2008 area. So this is our lowest point for the week, and that is our support line. Then the highest point for this week is the $2019, $2020 area, just right around our key level, and we have a resistant line around that area. So at this point, we have a simple flat channel, which you all know what we look out for whenever we have this kind of simple setup. We want to see price action either break out of the channel for buying opportunity or break down the support line for selling opportunities. So first of all, I would like to talk about the potentials of the buyers from this current structure, and let us see what we need to see from the structure that will give us an insight to buy the XAUUSD. Now, the first thing I did here was to acknowledge the bullish momentum since Friday. As you can see, price has been finding higher lows but yet to find higher highs in this market. So when we connect the series of higher lows here, we have a bullish trend line on our screen. So this bullish trend line you see here is going to be guiding our trading activity for this week. So as long as price action remains above that trend line, we shall feel comfortable in our buy position. Now, for me to buy the XAUUSD based on this structure, definitely I want to see price action break out of this key structure at the 2020 stroke the $2019 level, which if price action breaks out of that level, it would have also broken out of the resistant line of that descending channel that we identify here, and that will be the first time price action will be breaking out of that trend line in the last 1 week. So a breakout of that structure will be a sign for me to look out for buying opportunities in this market. Now, retest of structure at one point on our lower time frame will give us further confirmation of the strength of the buyers in this market. So that is the only thing I want to see here that will make me buy the XAUUSD today. So we are looking out for buying opportunity just right above our key level for this week, which will also have broken out of that resistant line of the descending channel we identified on the 1 hour time frame. Now, in as much as we are looking out for buying opportunity here, we cannot ignore the potentials of sellers. As you can see, if I zoom out, you will see that we have a descending channel, and since last week Wednesday, we have been seeing a strong impulsive bearish move. At least look at what happened here on Wednesday. We saw this impulsive bearish move to the downside. The same thing also happened on Thursday. We saw this impulsive bearish move to the downside here too as well, and these are very beautiful signs that sellers are very, very prominent around this area. So we cannot ignore the potentials of sellers at this point, and considering the fact that price action is finding it difficult to break above the 2020 since the beginning of this week, as where our resistant line of that descending channel is more or less a sign that sellers might likely take over this market too as well. So we want to consider the potentials of sellers too. So now, what do we want to see on this chart that will make us feel comfortable selling the XAUUSD today? Now, remember, we had this bullish trend line which we figured out after connecting the series of higher lows, and I made mention here that we shall be using this trend line as our yardstick for trading activity today. So price trading above that level gives us comfort in our buy position, but if at any point in time price breaks down this trend line, then at this point we want to be seeing this as a bearish signal. Remember, at this point we are not getting too excited, as we still need some confirmation to happen to give us an insight into the strength of the sellers here. So this confirmation will come in the form of a retest of structure. It could be the retest of the $2014.50 level, which I was able to identify here, as this level will help us to identify sell position and at the same time make us feel comfortable in our sell position if we do have a breakdown retest of this level. So we will look forward to a retest of the $2014.50 level, or in fact price action could still go to as far as retesting the trend line or the 2019 area. But most importantly, what we want to be seeing is a pattern like a double top structure, a reversal pattern around that area, giving us signs that buyers are finding it difficult to break above that level. Then if we start seeing this situation, then we could have a sell stop order just right below the $2014.50 level to be part of the bearish move to the downside. So at this point in time, we would have taken advantage of the bearish momentum early enough, even before the breakdown of the $2008 area, where we already have a sell stop order sitting there, anticipating price to come into that structure to trigger another move. Now, if price action now continues to the downside, it now depends on how it reacts to the $2,000 area. That will now determine if we are going to be adding more sell position to our existing trade or getting ready to join another wave of bullish momentum. So let's be on standby for these opportunities. So we want to see how price action plays out around this area. Now, for those who would like to do something here, personally, I would have a sell stop order below the structure and then have my stop loss wide enough to capture this whole potential retest of structure before the wave to the downside happens. So we could have a sell stop loss somewhere around the $2020 area, and 2019 that will dovetail to about 45 to about 55 pips thereabout as stop loss on this sell position in this market. So let's see how this plays out in the next 24 hours, and be rest assured that we will be here tomorrow to review how well this pair is doing in this market. So if you have any questions regarding what I just explained here, feel free to let me know in the comment section, and I'm willing to be of help in that regard. So I want to move on into the GBPJPY. Do I have a couple more pairs that I would love to treat and share with you, but because of the time frame, I will just treat the instruments that were below 206983 introduced to us today. So then that is the GBPJPY. I can see Steamroller in the house there. Good morning, Steamroller. How are you doing today? Glad to have you around. How's work? All right, so let's move into the GBPJPY and let's see what is going on the GBPJPY. So where's the GBPJPY here? It's been a while since I traded this pair, and that is why you will find it very, very far away from my watch list. So let's run through this quickly and see what is really going on in that market, and let's anticipate what our next line of action will be. So the first thing we are going to be doing, as usual, is to go into the daily time frame. Of course, we want to see things from an holistic point of view. We want to see how participants in this market has been looking at this structure since let's see, from the beginning of this year, I think. And if we look at this structure closely, you will see that price action has actually been bullish. And when we connect the series of higher lows in this market, this is what I was able to pull out from here. So we want to ensure that we have a mean of this trend line, so at least it will cut across majority of the pivot lows here. So that is one. We are going to be doing some readjustment when we bring back our candle charts. But before we do that, we want to have a key level, which will be a platform upon which we shall be guiding our trading activity for this week. So we have a key level sitting just exactly along that psychological level there at the 168.00 area. So my key levels are always highlighted in gold for to emphasize its importance. So let's give it a gold color. And here we go. So we have a key level there. Then at this point again, there's another thing I'm seeing here, which is the lower highs, which we are seeing around this area. So we are already having something that's looking like a flag pattern, which is a trend continuation pattern you have there. So let's see how this is going to be playing out for us this week. So now bringing back my candle chart right now, things becomes clearer. So we can see it has been bullish, and we saw the breakout of the 168.00 area, a very strong psychological level at the beginning of the month. And since the breakout of the structure happened, we saw our price had come to retest the structure a couple of times. So we can see that sellers are finding it very difficult to even break down the 168.00 area. And at this point, you will agree with me that buyers are gradually gaining momentum, and we might likely be seeing price action move to the upside. But we are not going to be jumping into conclusions here, as we need to scale down to a much more lower time frame to see how the structure is unfolding, and at the same time see how majority in the market has been reacting to the current levels. So the first thing I will do here is to go into the 4 hours time frame so that we can have a resistant line that we're going to be using. So let me bring this back in so that we can see things clearly here. And then I think my trend line has disappeared. So bring back my line chart and then reconnect the trend line again, and then let's allow this trend line to show on all our time frames. Okay, hold on a second. All right, so here we go. Now we're also going to have a level that will guide our trading activity for today, and that falls around the 170. Yes. Okay, so I hope you're following me patiently accordingly. We are going to get to the bottom of this before the end of the session. So we have the 170.00 level, a very strong psychological level considering the round figure of that price. And bring back our candle chart. So we have it right now. So you can see how the 170 level shares a beautiful confluence with that trend line that has been supporting this bearish momentum since the beginning of this month. So you can see this trend line. So since the beginning of the month, this is what we have been seeing here. So it's a very beautiful trend line, and price action sitting just right along the 170 area, which also shares a confluence with the trend line, is a very significant structure for me to look out for trading opportunities today. And in fact, looking out for buying opportunity just right above that 170.00 area. So now with this situation here, let's scale down into a much more lower time frame so that we can capture how we want to be taking advantage of this move. Now, when we scale down to the 1 hour time frame, things becomes much more clearer. As you can see, we have our trend lines. So I would like to bolden this trend line a little bit so that it will give us a sense of hold on a second. So we have the 170.00 area here. Okay, so we already have a breakout of the 170. So for those who are taking advantage of this one right here, well done to you for being on standby to catch that move, as you will currently be running with about 30 pips in profit, and which is not bad at all. So I ensure you have your stop loss quite close to somewhere around here, which is about 40 pips around the 169.600 area. That's about 38 pips stop loss around that area. Now, for those who had missed out on this opportunity, how do we intend to take advantage of this move? Well, you all know from a technical standpoint, whenever price action breaks out of a key structure like this, especially a very important confluence like this one, we expect that one point in time, price is likely going to come back and retest that structure. So if you had missed out on that buy position at the breakout of the 170.00 area, then you could wait for price action to come back, retest this level in anticipation of another wave. Then if you're already in this trade, you could still add more position at the retest of that structure. Then to make things much more easier for us, we want to identify a trend line which we shall be using to guide our trading activity. So we have this bullish trend line after connecting the series of higher lows since last week Thursday, we have a trend line that we shall be using. So I will make this a little bit much more thicker so that we can see things more clearly. So you can see it lines up exactly. So if at any point price action comes back to retest the structure, we have a beautiful confluence here. So we look out for more opportunities to buy. So on this one here, on the GBPJPY, as long as price action remains above both the 170.00 level and this trend line, we continue to look out for buying opportunities in this market. So we have a very beautiful confluence there to look out for more opportunities to buy the GBPJPY today. So buy breakout retest of this structure that we have here. Now, what happens if price action continues to find higher highs and it doesn't come back into this? I doubt if that will happen anyways, but if it does happen that price action continues to find higher highs in this market, then we would want to find another structure here that we shall be using to guide that move all the way to the upside. So if you look at things closely here, I think we have something around the 170.500. So let's map that area out. So if price action continues in such a way that it doesn't come back down and instead it continues to find a higher high, so we have the 170.500 level to capture that move. So we want to see a breakout retest of that structure. Remember what I just said here, breakout retest of that structure before we join that move. So we want to see something like this. So as soon as the breakout happens, you want to scale down to your lower time frame to see a retest of the structure to happen and the appearance of buy pressure before joining that move. And in fact, a breakdown could happen to bring price back into the trend line in anticipation of another wave of bullish momentum to the upside. So on the GBPJPY this week, we are looking forward to buying opportunities here. It's looking very, very bullish. So be on standby to catch any of these opportunities. However, in as much as we're looking out for buying opportunity, I always ensure that we keep tabs with the opposite direction too as well. We want to look at the potentials that sellers have to in this market. So if we are going to be selling, if at any point in time the idea of selling wants to come in, what do we want to see in this market that make us to sell? And remember, I told you earlier that we already have a trend line here which is guiding our bullish momentum so far for this week. If at any point in time price action breaks down that trend line to the downside, then at this point we want to consider this as a bearish signal. And if that happens, remember, we are not getting too excited. We want some confirmation to happen, which is likely going to come in the form of a retest of the trend line that was broken. And in fact, this trend line, we have two trend lines here, the bearish trend line and the bullish trend line. And then we also have the 170.00 area where selling pressure below the structure will give us that opportunity to sell. And depending on how price action reacts to the 168.00 area, remember our key level on the daily time frame will now determine if we are going to be adding more sell position or getting ready to buy the GBPJPY. So these are my views here on the GBPJPY for this week. So I'm holding on to a bullish bias here. So as long as price action remains above this trend line, this bullish trend line here, we feel comfortable in our buy position and look out for more opportunities to add more position to our existing trade. And it's on this note I want to draw the curtain. It has been a wonderful moment being with you guys today as we were able to treat I think 4 instruments. Actually, we treated the USOil spot, the US Tech 100, and I think we treated the XAUUSD and then the GBPJPY, which is going to be the instrument we are going to be monitoring for the week. I hope we all had a wonderful moment out there, and just be on standby to catch any of these opportunities. I hope you screenshotted my screen so that you can use it as a reference point as we get prepared for the new week. Do have a wonderful evening, everyone. And for those who are joining us for the first time, I hope you are able to gain one or two things here. And trust me, with time, you get to understand how this works as we continue to join us every day. So I look forward to seeing you guys same time tomorrow, 10 a.m. UTC, 11 a.m. West African time, as we come here again to review how well the pairs that we have been monitoring so far has been doing this week. Do have a wonderful evening, everyone. Bye-bye.